There you are. How's everyone doing today? This is Cassandra Williamson. I am coming to you from Eastern Kentucky, located up in the hills in Hatfield McCoy feud territory. I mean, just minutes from there, literally, from the birthplace, the home place of each of them. So anyway, I was watching the five just a few minutes ago, and I'm going to tell you something. It is baffling to me that trans Americans can take up so much space and time in the minds of the hosts and leaders over on the five. It's baffling to me. I don't know. Do you find that really baffling? Why is it they spend so much time talking about us, talking about trans Americans? Oh, come on. But they don't tell you all the whole story, though, right? They don't tell you that the Trevor Project was closed for the LGBT hotline, the hotline that the Trevor Project was operating for LGBT youth to call in for suicide prevention. They closed that, not the five, but the federal government. You don't hear all that kind of stuff over on Fox News. So anyway, yeah, so we've got a lot to actually work with this evening because I heard, let me see, Jesse Waters, he used the word Trantifa, and he was talking about people who are opposing ICE. I think it was in San Francisco, maybe, or somewhere out in California. Of course it is. That's where they actually go all the time to get all the film, their clips. So, yeah, he said Trantifa, and I sent a message to them going, Trantifa? What? What are you talking about? And then Greg had to jump in and say something about transgender people. And then the other person sitting in on there, another person on there had to mention trans people again and talking about Leah Thomas and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. And then Greg Gutfield goes back in and goes, oh, and they were talking about men. They were talking about men and how the Democratic Party is trying to reach men. And then, you know, they have a problem. There's no doubt of that. They've got a definite problem. But don't spend $2 million or $20 million on a study for that. Oh my God, it just pisses me off to hear that. Anyway, so Greg was saying that most men just want, men just want to live and let live, to be left alone, to have, that kind of stuff. And I sent them a message saying, you're the one talking about us. You're the one bringing it up every other minute or so on Fox. I mean, it was a main topic at the very beginning of the show. I mean, they couldn't talk about any news story, whether it was ICE raids or anything else going on in the country, but they tied it all back to transgender Americans. I don't understand why or how they have allowed people like me to take up residence in their heads like that. I mean, it's not my choice. I'm not the one out here going, hey, let me in. I want in your head. So that you'll talk about us all the time, just incessantly. We want to live and let live. We want you to follow the golden rule, be good to people. That's all we're asking too. But yet, Jesse and Greg and what was her name? Campanos over there on the five. That's all they could talk about for the first 10 minutes, maybe 15. That's all they were talking about was trans people. Oh my gosh. It's just baffling to me that it's kind of validating, maybe, if I were needing anything like that, to have news anchors. They're not news anchors. They're opinion anchors over here spending so much time talking about trans people in America. And we just want to live and let live, just like they do. Anyway, and we're not shoving any of this down anybody's throats. You are. They are. They're the ones constantly bringing it up. And I'm having to respond to it. Now, some would say, well, just don't give them any airtime, but don't respond to it. Well, for one thing, what else am I going to do? No. Some things you just can't let slide, but you got to go and confront it and at least talk to them about it and try to get them to come and actually have a conversation with you about these things. But they don't want to do that. They want to talk at you, but not talk with you. Whereas I would gladly talk with any of them. Any of them. I'm not, I'm secure in who I am. They apparently are not. If that makes any sense to anyone. Really, I know who I don't have to constantly tell people like Fox is saying, we're going after the trans people. We're going to talk about the trans people. They were involved in the LA fires yesterday, or let me see, what else? Oh, there was a flood taking place down in Texas. It had to be blamed it up. We got to blame it on the trans people. Or I don't know, Joe Schmo down in the courthouse down somewhere in Podunk, Alabama, had a conversation today out on the steps. And he was just talking to old Mo about stuff, and every word that came out of his mouth was transgender people. Now, I'm making up stuff, obviously. And Ron DeSantis, you go down into Florida and you get Commander DeSantis. I almost figured out another name for this. Commander Salamander. Somebody's got that name. But some of you may know. But I'm just calling him Commander Salamander. He's got trans people on his mind. Abbott of Texas got transgender people on his mind. Jeez. Every time he talks about some immigrant crossing the Rio Grande, he goes, it's got to be because those trans people are standing guard down there. We got people like that. We kicked them out of the military. Now we got to keep them out of the country. That's Abbott. Yep. That's what we're dealing with, folks. We got a bunch of people who have got us squarely taking up massive amounts of space and time in their heads. But it's dangerous. They're in positions of power and influence right now. It will pass. Yes, it will. This is very cyclic. All of this stuff is. I've talked about it incessantly. Over time. It comes and goes with the winds and the waves. Yeah. But right now, they're in a position of power, and they're causing great harm to this entire community of the LGBT Americans, minorities in this country. It's not just LGBT people. It's for women. It's for Pacific Islanders. It's for Puerto Ricans. It's for the LGBTQ plus people in this country. That's what's going on. They have a thing for us. They just can't get us out of their head. They see us as such a threat. It's like, let me see. There might be 1.6, maybe even 2 million trans people in the country, trans Americans in this nation. It might be that. Could be a little more, could be a little less. I don't know, something like that. But that's really, how many people are in the country? 323 million. 323 million people in this country, and 1.6 million to 2 million represents a small percentage, like maybe 0.7, 0.6, 0.7% of the total population, 0.7 at the most. Jeez. Come on, we're such a threat to you guys. Get all but hurt about us for no reason. No reason. You've been made to fear who we are because you think that we are a problem, and you've been told that we are. And most of you don't even know a single trans person. But yeah, you think you know all there is to know about them. Yep, you sure do. You really do. Anyway, I get a kick out of the 5. I love sending them little messages over on Twitter that says, ha, 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 you guys are so funny. Oh my gosh. I appreciate all the good thoughts and stuff. I mean, the goodwill you have towards your fellow Americans. That's what it amounts to, right? So today for supper here in the holler in eastern Kentucky. At my brother's home, I fixed some pinto beans this afternoon. Actually, I started earlier towards the middle of the day, and you let them soak in a pot of water and add some bacon in there to it, and you go add a little bit of seasoning in and let it soak in, and just let it soak for about 3 hours. Then you boil it as fast and as hard as you can. Boil real fast and real hard, and it gets that soupy brown look to it. And then you can turn it down and let it slow cook, relatively slow cook, until about 5, which is what I did today. A little after 5 when I turned the stove off. And then you've got, let me see, I fixed some smoked sausages that I had and put some, chopped them up, put barbecue sauce, fixed that in a pan. And I cut some wedge potatoes and seasoned them and stuck them in the oven and baked them, and I had some cornbread. And that's a meal, folks. That is good comfort food down here in the South, or over here in the South, or wherever you're up here in the South. I don't know where you're listening to me from, but wherever, wherever you are. Yeah, absolutely. So one of those fascinating days. And then earlier when I did my little thing for the noontime program, I actually did it from out on the front porch of my brother's home and walked down the road just a little bit, just far enough to lose my signal and turn on and come back. And then, I love listening to the creek and watching the water run. And if you'll notice when you step out that porch, there's a mountain in front of you. There's also a mountain behind you. And the valley winds. It's 2 miles one way and at least a mile the other way. This is a holler. This is a classic holler here in Kentucky. Really is. Fits all the requirements for a holler. No noise. I mean, you don't hear sirens going off. We don't even hear gunshots around here anymore. But I did talk about resilience and how resilient people are here, and how all the stuff that I know is coming after them from this big bodacious bodinga of a bill. That's now a law. It's all going to feel good for the next 18 months. But after that, you'll start seeing it. People around here are on Medicaid. People around here, most of them aren't going to get very much out of that big tax refund people talking about that Donald Trump and his team are pushing. If you're making, most of the people make around here bring home less than $30,000, sometimes less than $20,000 a month. The tax savings might amount to $100, $150 at most over the year. The people who will see the most are the ones who are making more than, $250,000 a year. There are a few of those here. They'll make a lot, but it won't be a lot to them. It'll be a lot to people who are making 20,000. Yeah, you've been hoodwinked into thinking this is a good thing. Now, you know how we fixed the deficit after World War II? You know how it was done? You know how the deficit was fixed after World War II? It was lower than it is now, really. Statistically, number-wise, statistically, it was lower. But it was still living beyond our means. And that's what it took to win the war, though, by the way, because you could pull it together and make it happen. And that's what sovereign money is all about, by the way. It's not necessarily that this big debt thing is an issue. It's sovereign. There's a little difference than what you have in your bank and the way you run your budget at home. You don't have a sovereign home budget, but you do have a sovereign national budget and national income and, whatever. But the point is, after World War II, they jacked up the tax rate for those who were making over whatever it was, the wealthy amount, to 75%. Effectively, they were using discounts and, and rebates or whatever they were doing, and getting, write-offs for certain things. And effectively it might have been 53% or 50%, but that's how much was going towards repairing the deficit. And it worked. But it took people actually saying what they wanted to do rather than trying to obfuscate and hide it behind things and lie to you about it. Because right now, what this system is doing, this bill, this actual law, here in Kentucky, the vast majority of the people are not making $250,000 a year. Those who are working, and there's few jobs here now, just a few, those who are working might make $30,000 to $40,000, maybe, highly unlikely, maybe. So they need the SNAP benefits. They need help with their health care. They're working one or two jobs. I know a trans person working at the local Walmart here, a young person, having to work there, works at McDonald's and also does other things like, DoorDash or whatever. They're doing everything they can to make it just to get by. And they're still going to end up making it under the $30,000 a year range. So the return on the taxes, the tax break that they'll get, maybe 150 max at the end of the year. They won't see that much, but they will have their SNAP benefits, SNAP, the food stamp program. They will have difficulties and challenges with that. They will have difficulties and issues with their health care and the insurance for it. They'll have those problems and those challenges. But the cost for them is statistically enormous. Whereas the same amount of money spent by someone who makes $250,000 is inconsequential statistically. So it gets difficult when you make little and you have to spend a lot. Because if you only make, let's say you make $2,000 a month and you're spending $200 to $300 or more on insurance, and another $100 on your auto insurance, and all your bills piling up, you can't afford to get sick. You can't afford a day off. You can't afford to do anything except work every job you can get your hands on. And most people around here do that. Most people do that. There are those who can't or won't. But yeah, this big bodacious bazinga of a bill is going to show up in 18 months as being more harmful than what you absolutely imagine it will be. And then in 2018 or 2028, the rest of it kicks in and other changes will be made that will be felt during the next administration so that they will make life miserable for that next administration to have to fix. That's the whole point of all of this stuff. They delay it so that somebody else gets the brunt of the political hit on it. They know it's going to hit. Why do you think they postpone some of these things from rolling out until, the midterms, and then after the midterms and after the next, election, presidential election, they roll these things out in that manner because they know there will be political heat over it. That's the way this BBB is. They're going to give you the money for having a child, give you that benefit up front because that'll help with the 2026 midterms. Look what they did. They gave me some money, $1,000. But like I said a minute ago, $1,000 to somebody who makes 30 is a lot. But for somebody who makes $250,000, they might not get that, but that $1,000, it's not going to get turned around and spent back in the community that easily. It's going to be put in the bank somewhere and saved, or in stocks. Yeah, or maybe even sent to Grand Cayman. Who knows? Anyway, the 5. Oh my gosh, the 5 just. I watch them because I need a laugh every day, and then I came up with the image. Actually, I found the image, and I figured it would go well with this. They don't look this good though, but I'm gonna try to find this image really quickly before I get out of here. And I'm gonna find it and put it up here. It's an image, and that one, and that one, and here we go. There we go, Fox. I left the commentary out of that picture. I could have put in, I don't know, something dripping out of his nose. I could have put they them over his ears, their ears, they, that fox, they, and them. I don't know. I could do any kind of number of things with that, but I didn't. I didn't really have much time with it. Could turn it into all kinds of things, and I could make it look like Jesse. But Jesse sits there with his straw. You know, I mean, he doesn't drink from a straw. Real men don't drink from a straw. Mm-mm-mm-mm. He is the definition of manhood. Oh my God. Yep. With his legs all spread eagle. And I've told him a number of times, put your legs together, Jesse. Nobody wants to see you sit there like an idiot. And don't you dare fix those s'mores in the oven as a man. I mean, you got to do it over out on the grill camping. Yeah. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who make s'mores on the ATV trails around here in Pike County, Kentucky, and Mingo County, West Virginia. And speaking of that, if you're looking for some entertainment or some getaway time and some time to get to nature, well, minus the noise of the loud ATVs all over the place, but this is the place to come. That's the big industry these days, is the entertainment around here. The ATV trail riding systems are here. Not too many coal mines anymore. The air is not filled up with a lot of coal dust. When I was growing up, there was coal in the air, and I ended up with coal in my lungs, coal dust in my lungs. And some doctor down in Alabama, when they did a lung biopsy trying to figure out why I couldn't breathe real well, they said, how'd you get anthracite in your lungs? And I said, well, doctor, I grew up in eastern Kentucky, the heart of the billion-dollar coal fields. Anyway, welcome to the Holler, and I hope y'all have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow around noon-ish and 6 p.m. Eastern.